What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Thoughts Not Facts morning show with your host, Kevin.
And Jennifer.
I'm TK's Garage 405.
And I am free and on the road.
Make sure you guys follow us on social media. Follow us here, like, subscribe, share us around. If you comment, it helps us grow too. It helps the algorithm and helps if you guys share it around for us and stuff. So appreciate everybody that's been watching so far. We had a couple little lulls there, but we're going to try to get back on track here. We've just had a hectic month here. So, anyways, so today, getting back in the spirit of how we ended up where we are today, we're going to talk more about some full-time RV living. We got a lot of we got a lot of response, a lot of people asking us about it still. I think a lot of people are curious about it, and so they think that they want to know. Like, I think a lot of people think it's like really complicated. A lot of people think it's really simple, and nobody really knows until they do it. Neither did we. So this is going to be our top 10 tips for RV living, kind of things that you need to think about, and I guess what you should be looking at before you really get going. A little bit of planning, pre-planning, I guess. We actually did, honestly. I think what helped us there, just to kind of start this off, I think what helped us there was that we had a pretty good advantage that we had done a lot of camping and we did some longer term camping and things like that. So, but we'll get into that right away. First things first here, I'm going to try out tonight's beer. It is a rival wheat beer. It is from Muskogee Brewing Company. And it is I guess that's it, just a wheat beer.
Hey, maybe tap the can this time so it doesn't explode on you.
Yeah, I'll show you guys before I open it there. It's kind of a funny.
If you watched last show on Tuesday there, he exploded the beer all over us. So.
Uh-huh.
Today, no exploding beer.
I don't know why that happened.
This is what happens when you have many children in your house.
That is different. I can drink though.
Different good or different bad?
I don't know if you'll like it or not. You might not like it. It is different.
Oh, it smells funky.
I don't even know what to compare it to. It's like almost between a lager and a pilsner, just about.
It's okay. It wouldn't be my first choice.
I'm trying to think what it would be like.
It's not terrible.
It's kind of domestic-y tasting to me.
Yeah, I think that's
it's kind of like that typical sort of, if you were to drink a really light domestic, almost like not quite Coors, but it's like on the same probably like palate as Coors, but like a smoother. It's smoother than
It's
that.
smooth. It's definitely smooth. It doesn't have any weird hoppiness, but it's not my favorite profile. Not
I don't know. I could probably drink that.
Muskogee is not
I'm
even
going to drink that.
Well, you are going to drink it because you don't just taste it. You have to like immerse in it.
Yeah. That's pretty good. It has no weird bite. It has no.
There's no IPA flavor to it.
Does it have 4.7%? So that's about right.
And you must like it because it looks just like you.
Yeah, that's right.
See, it's Kevin on the tractor.
All right, guys. So first things first here. You want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start. I mean, you'll probably cut in because I probably am going to say things and you'll be like, I don't know.
No, okay. All right, I'll let you get going first.
All right. So the first thing to think about is the upfront cost that's going to be involved in that. So I would say the first tip is think about cost. Think about things like, what are your sites going to cost? Will there be extra charges for electricity, water, or internet? Some places include it all, some places don't. So kind of doing some of the planning and knowing. What do you do with your home when you're living in your RV? Like cost wise, like, are you going to keep your home so you can eventually move back into it? Are you going to like maybe rent it out? If you're renting now, I guess you would have less of an issue because you're already a renter. But if you own your home, like what costs are like associated with that? Also, like the cost of fuel. Like I think that was one thing when we traveled, we didn't realize how much it cost to get from point A to point B the first couple times, just because I mean fuel fluctuates, and if you're driving a diesel versus a gas, that affects your fuel cost, right? Knowing like I don't know, like you have some other things on here. How will you travel each week? Like how far will you go? Like how much is that gonna cost you? Like if you're doing a road trip, like let's say that you want to live in an RV and you want to do like all 50 states in a certain amount of time, kind of mapping that out and knowing like how far you're going to go, how many miles you're going to put in, and how much that's going to cost you. I like this one. This wasn't really cost related, but I like this one. Do you need an address? This is a big
It is
one,
cost related
I
because
guess,
you
because you
can
have to pay
you
for it.
yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
This is a really important one. Like, if you, I know, like, we're going to kind of touch this a little farther down about like homeschooling, but if you homeschool your kids, you have to have a physical address to homeschool your kids. You can't be in a school district unless you have an address. So, like, maybe you keep your house address and forward it to a PO box, or however you're going to do that. We actually did keep our house address for the first year
Yeah.
there. So, I mean, there's a lot
And
of
that
things.
actually was a problem for us when we were kind of on the road and we were thinking about trying to homeschool like down here
Yeah.
versus in Canada. That turned into a little problem for us. So
Yeah, we can talk about that. I
yep.
don't know much time we're going to have, so we're just going to top on the top 10 tips for now.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have to do more in depth shows on some of those things.
If we have time, we'll come back and we'll touch them a little bit here
Yeah,
with our what happened on our end.
and healthcare, that's another big thing. Like, we came from Canada to the US, so we had universal healthcare in Canada, and then we came down here and we had to figure out what healthcare was going to be like, what the costs were related in that. And then another big thing for us is maintenance costs. Tires, tires, tires.
Yeah, we did when we started off. We only made it like 15 minutes from our house. We had a camper that had pretty much brand new tires on it, and we started getting flats already. I was like, man, I'm not even messing around here. Our camper was only 4 years old at the
Mm-hmm.
time. Not even
Not even, it
actually.
was
Not
less
even.
than
It was a
that.
couple of years old actually, as a matter of fact. So, anyways, I was like,
Yeah.
man. So we just put four new tires on it, and back then it was like $600. Not even. It was like 580 for four tires, and now four camper tires are I think probably installed probably well over 1,000 anyway. So
Yeah, so cost is definitely a big thing to think about, and thinking about maintenance. Like, we have to do regular maintenance on our camper even now. Like, we're still using our camper and we have to do regular maintenance. You have to like different things like in your plumbing and just like everything that you can think of, any moving part that, I mean, we had to fix that slide. Where were we when we had to fix that slide? We had to
Iowa,
take it, that was
yeah,
in Iowa, and
yeah.
the slide quit working. So there's a lot of little things that are moving intricate parts on your camper depending on what you have and what you're doing, and taking into account that it's going to cost money like owning a home.
Yeah, and a little bit with that is that when it's getting fixed, like you can't be living in it.
Yeah.
It's got to go to the dealership. So then, what are you going to do, right? So there's that too. All right. So the other big ones are like, okay, we're talking about like if you want to be living on the road, what are you going to be using? Are you going to have a fifth wheel? Are you going to have a motorhome? Are you going to have a camper van? Those types of choices, and that's going to depend on obviously what your needs are, right? If you have a big family, if it's just two of you, if you're retired, whatever, there's obviously going to be a big difference there. So the biggest thing that when we were ready to do this, what we wanted to make sure is that we had permanent beds for everybody had some sort of closet space. It had to be fit into, we were pulling ours with a truck, so we had bought a half ton way before we decided to do this, like maybe in the last year before that. And so we had to find something that was huge, but our truck could still tow. Otherwise, we would have had to get another truck, which didn't make sense at the time. So your tow vehicle, what you're towing with, or like making sure that thing's up to snuff, I guess, or whatever. If you're going to pull a fifth wheel, making sure
Mm-hmm.
the truck's big enough, because it gets pretty heavy pretty quick when you got X amount of people living in it, right? And you're always wanting to bring extra stuff. Like if you're going to stay somewhere longer term, you always are thinking like, oh, I'm going to have extra stuff. So that max capacity of that camper is going to end up being pretty heavy pretty quick, right? So um, does your camper have a four seasons package? We've run into that even down here. We're down in Oklahoma, and we're using it still for our as a kitchen. And so we've had some below freezing weather, and we had to actually go and buy a bunch of insulation on a whim there, because it was going to start getting below freezing for a week there, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
bought a bunch of skirting and quickly like pretty much just put it on the camper. So, and ours has a four season package, but I don't feel like the most campers four seasons packages are good enough to really hold up to real cold, right? So most people skirt them. If you see people stay in them in the cooler weather, most people tend to skirt them. Ours was just a quick job because we weren't planning for that, right? We just weren't thinking about it till the last minute. And then how much fridge storage do you have for the amount of people that you have? Like that's been a huge thing for us. We went through a few different campers there. One had a pretty small fridge, and then the next one was a little bit bigger. And then this one's been the biggest that we've had, and it's still not like a full upright one. It's probably about half of that, but it did okay. But things with that is like, how much storage do you have? Do you want to run to the grocery store every
Every
basically
couple
every
days,
couple
yeah.
days or whatever, right? Because that's all you can store. So those things are pretty important, to kind of think about. I guess again how many people you have or whatever, right? So yeah. Um, what else?
Okay, so I'm gonna skip the next one because I think that's a good one for you to talk about, and I'm gonna take this one. So the next one for us, which was a big thing, was homeschooling. How is it going to be feasible to homeschool, and like how are you going to do it when you're on the road? Like what is your classroom setup going to look like? So for us, that was the only thing that held us back. We had actually wanted to live in a camper for a long time, and I think we kind of touched on this before. And after COVID, we were kind of forced to homeschool. So it actually pushed us to live in a camper. That's why we lived in our camper, because we were able to homeschool. But there's a lot of things that we learned about that along the way. Like, are you going to do most of your homeschooling online, which is great because you don't have to bring all these books? But then you have to think about, are you going to have internet coverage everywhere? Like, are you going to have access? Like, we had issues sometimes where we didn't have access to the internet. And then if you decide, like, if you're doing younger kids, the one thing about younger kids is you need a lot more like curriculum, like hands-on stuff. Like our little guy does a lot of like building with blocks and things like that. That's how he learns his math. And thinking, is there enough storage for all this homeschooling stuff? Is it really like feasible in that sense? We did a lot of book type homeschooling. Our older kids did some online homeschooling, and sometimes, like when they were taking a college course, it did. Sometimes it was a bummer because of the internet. We also did. We tried to find campsites that had picnic tables outside, so they had a big outside area for learning. That was like one of the big things that we did. So just kind of thinking ahead, like, how is it going to work, or how are you going to implement it when you're on the road? And if you're going to do like a travel day, how you're going to work your homeschool schedule around those travel days. Like we had to do that, like work it out around the travel days so it didn't mess up our school schedule. You have a lot of flexibility homeschooling though. So if you're the only disadvantage of doing like online schooling is sometimes it's on like a rigorous schedule. That's why we decided not to do it that way. So we had the freedoms of homeschooling. So
Yeah, if you have the discipline to do that, it's definitely probably a better route for most people. But
yeah.
yeah, the other thing is like when you're going on the road, do you have some sort of income? Like, are you going to be making money on the road? There's some ideas like you can go work at a campground and they'll pay you, for example. Maybe you're their maintenance guy, or you just, whatever, run their office or whatever it is. That usually they'll give you a free site and pay you like
A little
some
bit.
sort of a
Yeah.
wage or whatever, which definitely helps. You probably make enough to live or whatever. Again, depending on, do you have four kids living with you, or is it just a retirement thing, right? And then you don't necessarily need money. Um, do you, when you're on the road, you need to have internet. We came across that quite a bit, where we found some really cool cheap campsites. Maybe we would have stayed at for a week or two or something like that, but they had like either really spotty or just almost no internet at all, and that just didn't work for us, right? So that's something to really think about. And if there is places where it's spotty, but maybe you could get some portable internet, like there's some Starlink, for example, is a portable thing now, and that's an option for some people. But again, that comes at a cost, right? Um, Knowing some locations don't have great internet like that. Like I said, you have to purchase something for the road. Maybe like, I don't know. There used to be I lost my train of thought there. There used to be like it was kind of the same idea as like Starlink, but maybe you could get like our camper, for example, has like a booster on it. So maybe the campsites that you go to, which we've had that a lot, where you'll get to a campsite and they sort of have internet, but you're not close enough to really get decent internet. So we have a booster on our camper, and that we use that quite a few times
Yeah.
actually. Um, what other ones there? We met some people on the road. They were like traveling nurses. We met a few people like that actually, and that's how they were making their money. And they were just, they'd go someplace, they'd stay there for a month, and then go to the next place or whatever. Or some of them were staying for like 3 month
Yeah. Depending on
contracts or
what their
whatever.
contract
So that
was.
was pretty cool, I thought. Call center job, you could do that from anywhere pretty well. A lot of companies will let you work remotely like that. I know there's a lot of other things since COVID that remote jobs are a little more open now, I guess, than there used to be. And then the other thing, kind of what we do, social media, a lot of people make their living on social media, and you don't necessarily have to have like a specific place that you're doing it from. You could be doing it on the road. So as long as you're consistent with that or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, so then another huge tip that we have is storage. Storage, storage, storage. Make sure you have enough storage for everything that you need, everything you could possibly need. One thing about the camper that we have now that was amazing is that there's like closet space for the kids. So they had their own closet space. We had closet space. There was drawers. There was storage under the couch. There's actually a pantry in the camper that we have, which is huge. Like having food storage, like even talked about the fridge aspect of it, but having foods like dry food storage is a big thing.
Yeah.
And then like the kids had storage under their bed. We had a whole area where we could actually keep our homeschooling. So that was how we were able to do it, because we had that one under hatch that they could put all those totes in, right? So storage is definitely one of the big ones.
Yeah. Kind of where you're planning to stay if you're going to go somewhere, and if you kind of know you're going to do this ahead of time. Maybe there's places you've been already where you're like, hey, let's check out this campground or something like that, so you know what the cost it is, if the camper you're going to use is going to fit in those spots, what you're maybe like what the place is like. Is there is there a lot of like pretty rough campers in those places? Because a lot of them do, if they're cheaper, even if they're more expensive, sometimes they do, right? So those are ones to think about. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
going on that is like, remember there was a lot of campgrounds we went to that maybe they didn't have like a flat campground. Like that was
yeah.
hard sometimes to find.
Yeah, and sometimes you can find a campsite, for example, that fits your camper but not your truck, but you could maybe unhook and park still or whatever. So like there's some things to think about there. Um, and yeah, just kind of knowing your route and where you're. I think you should at least have your first stop kind of mapped out. It'd be ideal if you had a couple ideas just so that you can continue on. But yeah,
Yeah, it was definitely something we learned along the way, is to be a little bit more prepared with our route. I
yeah.
think that makes a big difference.
We probably wouldn't do that, but that would be the advice
We
probably.
prepared a little bit more though. We did a little. We had
No, we
issues, but
didn't.
that's all right.
Yeah.
So going on to the whole storage thing is another big tip is too much stuff. I mean, our lives are full of too much stuff, and that's exactly what we found when we moved into our camper. Is we brought everything. Our kids brought their piano, they brought their guitar, I mean, like, it's great to have these things, but realizing what stuff you absolutely have to have. We had every board game in there. We had brought a tote of like our kids' trucks. I mean, like, we didn't want them to get bored, so we brought every toy. But when you're on the road, your kids aren't bored. You're out doing stuff. So it's a different lifestyle than living in a house. You don't need all the stuff like you do in a house. And I think that was like a huge learning lesson for us. It took us about a month before we realized, holy cow, we have to unload some of this stuff. Because when you're moving from location to location, kind of like learning how to open and close your camper, if you have too much stuff, it really slows down the moving from location to location, right? Like, because you just have so much stuff, you can't get everything fit back in, and learning that puzzle of how everything fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, other things, just like basic things we are talking about that you should have with you, that we think anyways, things we sort of forgot or just whatever.
Yep.
But an axe, we forgot our axe. Crazy. We had a chainsaw with us, but we didn't have an axe. Like, which is funny because we never used a chainsaw at all.
Yeah, and we would have definitely used an axe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outdoor cooking things like, a barbecue or a portable griddle, which we had. A generator if you're planning on staying. So like as we moved, there was a lot of times where we just like parked wherever along the way, started the generator for the night, and then it was just like a transit point. We had the generator in the truck, plugged it in, and that was it. Just hook up the cord and away you go. And then you have AC and things like that, because you start getting down into anywhere really. I mean, honestly, even Canada, but like you get south of the border and it starts getting hot in the dead of summer. It doesn't matter if it's Minnesota or Texas or whatever. It gets hot. You want AC to be able to sleep at night and things like that. So what else?
Well, I guess we were talking about the other tip was long-term stays. Like, you can save money if you stay somewhere long-term, right? but being careful, like you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but being careful. Sometimes these long-term stay places have people that are really long-term stayers, like almost borderline homeless long-term stayers. Like we've been to a couple places like that, and finding good long-term stay places that feel safe, like it's safe
Mm-hmm.
for your kids, it's a good, or safe for you, even like if you're retired. I mean, you want it to be a safe environment where you can walk around if you have pets and not feel like, you're you're in danger almost, right? Like feeling like it's a safe community where you're staying, even if it's only for a month, that's your community. Like we've found lots of community and met lots of people on the road, but we were picky about where we stayed.
Yeah, I've got a friend that wants to kind of retire and spend his winters in the U.S., but he's scared because he wants to bring. He's got like a old Camaro. He wants to cruise or whatever, but he's scared. Like, what if I leave it and then it gets stolen or damaged or something like that, or do I have to worry about that type of stuff? A lot of these places, like actually the place we stayed in Texas, was gated, and they actually got to the point now where they've actually got like the sliding gates with the remotes and everything. They were working on that slowly as we were there, but those are some options too. Then at least you feel a little more secure too. But just kind of the neighborhood you're in or whatever, like things like that, that definitely help. Um, weather is a huge one. There's going to be like so many things there. You're thinking about like kind of. I mean, everybody wants to get on the road to kind of get to the good weather. We did that, as we got going there. It was like rainy and it was kind of cold and whatever. We're like, man, let's just move. That's why we're in. That's why our house is on wheels now, right? So we just left until we got to some good weather, and boom, we ended up staying there for a few weeks or whatever. But so yeah, that's a huge one. Um, like go to certain states where maybe around whatever you like. A lot of people don't mind it super hot or maybe a little bit cooler or whatever. So go to the states where you think like it's maybe the right time to be there. If you like it really hot, then maybe Texas in the summer is the right place for you. If you don't, then maybe it's not, right? So um, things like hurricanes, like if you were to go to Florida, maybe going there during hurricane season isn't really where you want to be staying. Obviously, the northern states, or even like where we are, you can get snow and things like that where you might have to deal with that, like camper freezing or whatever. I know people that stayed in New Mexico for winter that's supposed to be really warm, but their hose was freezing every night. So that's something else to think about. What type of activities do you like to do? Do you like to, when you're camping, do you like to go fishing? Do you like to go golfing? Do you like to, go boating, whatever? Maybe like kayaking, whatever. So do you want to be close to water? Do you want to be close to a golf course? You don't want to be driving too far because that's an expense, right? So there's places where you can camp right on a golf course, and maybe you have your golf cart with you or you rent one or whatever, but you can just pretty much go from your site or something like that, right? Um, there's other things too, like outdoor living space, kind of like based on the weather. Like you got to think like, do you have an awning on your camper? If it starts pouring rain and you're in an area like that, and you don't have an awning, well, then you're stuck inside, right? If you do have an awning, that helps keep you out of the heat too. We used ours tons for that reason. Ours is an electric one, so you could just reel it in and out really easily. Huge bonus, huge bonus. I don't think we would have. I mean, we probably would have used it, but we wouldn't have put it in and out as often. And then when it's super windy or whatever, then that obviously is like a lot easier to roll it up, things like that. Um, Use it like things like the picnic table and a foldable tables and all that kind of stuff that you would use outside. That's just there's people bring Atta rooms with them, where it basically makes like an outdoor living space that's got like a basically a screened area, so maybe keeps out bugs and things like that. You have to think too, if you're homeschooling, for example, you might use that space for the kids to do their school, because where else are you going to do it, right? Um,
Well, you also have to make sure that you have a good indoor living space. Like that was one thing that, like for the kids for school, there were times where it was too hot to do school outside, and having, the ample table space and ample space to like do things inside, to be able to eat inside. Is your kitchen like enough that if it's raining outside, you can cook something inside? Like, thinking about that as well with inclement weather is, yes, it's great to have all the outdoor amenities for the weather when the weather's perfect, but sometimes you're going to have times where it's not perfect, right? And just making sure that you have that space on both ends, I think.
Yeah, like our camper, we got it thinking it would be the greatest. It's got like a huge U-shaped dinette that fits a ton of people. But if you were now to sit down and we didn't think about this, it seemed like it would be okay until we went to use it. Like the table is like this and the TV is over here. So it's like awkward for everybody or anybody really
Mm-hmm.
to watch TV, for example. And so, whatever camper you're going with, if you're going to live in it, you have to think about what's it going to be like when I'm sitting here watching TV, or what about when I'm doing, I'm sitting here eating, or when I'm doing school, or whatever it is, right? Or if we're
Like, how
just sitting
hard
around.
is it to get in and out? Like, that was one thing we didn't think about with that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even just, if you're going to sit around and maybe if it's two of you or 10 of you or whatever it is, if if it's raining or something and you're going to be inside, what's the space like? Is there room to play games and things like that, for
Mm-hmm.
example? And, you know, just little things like that. There's a lot of little moving parts there. Like, because if you don't have all of these things, you're going to be kind of miserable because you're like, man, because the reality of it is everybody that's on the road still wants the amenities of living in a house and they want it to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, then you're just going to want to move back into a house, right? So the whole point of like full-time living is that you're having a good time and enjoying it and everything, right? So ours wasn't perfect, but we made do. A lot of people have the TV on the outside, for example, and then all you need is a lawn chair. Maybe that's a better solution too. Maybe you don't think about it like as having like a TV inside for
Yeah.
watching TV. Maybe you're just every night we see that lots when we're on the road. Tons of people sit outside and watch
Mm-hmm.
TV and whatever. So, yeah,
And that's something you don't think about when you're just camping. I think when your mindset changes from like camping to living, there's certain things you don't think about. Like if we were just camping for the weekend, we don't need a TV.
that's right. Yeah,
But when you're living in your camper, sometimes you want some downtime and you do want to watch TV. And those are things like I think that would be like something like to like piggyback on all this stuff is realizing that your mindset has to be a little bit different than hey, this is a weekend camping trip,
yeah, yeah,
right?
that's
Like a
right.
lot of times that's like you'd said like about things to bring, like making sure that you have like sometimes there's not going to be a picnic table. Well, we always had a fold up table that we made sure we brought, right? Like so there's
Mhm.
those little things that you think differently because we're actually living in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna let you do the last one because you're way better at this than I am.
Yeah. So is your tow vehicle going to be your main vehicle? Like, if it is, that a lot of this goes hand in hand with cost and things like that. But, for example, when we were on the road there, my transmission went in my truck, and that was our main drive around vehicle, and so that kind of created a little bind for us there for a bit. We were pretty fortunate that the dealership we went to, they were in San Angelo, the GM dealer in San Angelo, best dealer we've had in a very long time,
Ever.
San Angelo, Texas. But yeah, I mean, they got us in super fast and had us out like within a couple of days there with a brand new transmission. But I mean, that was kind of an anomaly because we were just actually from Canada, just sort of vacationing, I suppose, at that point, and so they were trying to help us get along or whatever. But you know, we had a warranty on our truck, so but if we didn't, that would have been a very, very expensive bill. And then,
Mm-hmm.
if that's your tow vehicle, like if it was just a tow behind vehicle and it was like an RV or something, you could probably get away with not having it for a while or whatever. But if it's your tow vehicle, you need it, right? So there's a lot of that kind of things. If it's just two of you, like maybe you're retired, or maybe it's just like me and her going on the road or something, affordable, ideas, maybe just like a motorbike. We watched some show one time there where this couple was going to hit the road like that, and they're just a young couple and they never rode a motorbike in their life, and they had to get it in like 6 days or something like that, and they just bought some beater motorbike there and took their license with it or whatever, and away they went, right? Probably super cheap to insure and register and everything like that. So something like that maybe is fine, right? Like depending what you need it for, and super cheap to drive around on gas and things like that. So there is some options like that. Some people pull those slingshots around or whatever, things like that. But there's just some different ideas. If you're, obviously, if you're driving a motorhome, I used to pull around. I had a little geo tracker for a while there. I had a small little Chevy car that I pulled around for a while there. So there's some options there, whatever. But that comes against the expensive like towing and fuel cost, and there's maintenance costs and insurance costs on that extra vehicle and things. So that's just things to think about too. So yeah, that was the bulk of it anyways there. So
Yeah, these are just the top 10 tips for starting full-time RV living. There is so much more information that we have that we can give you and kind of break it down more for you. If you have questions or if you have like, like if you're thinking about doing this and this is something that you want to do and you have some questions about it, let us know. Drop it in the comments and You got a good one.
I didn't
hey?
want to. I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want to tell her this one.
He's
When she
already.
knows, then she doesn't laugh about it.
No, I don't laugh about it because they're pretty terrible.
All right. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? It was too tired.
Oh my gosh.
Jennifer is slacking on her Oklahoma fact
Because
today.
I had to make supper.
No, okay.
I had to make supper.
She did.
And
yeah.
you put this all together. So we are going to give you an Oklahoma fact about camping.
All right.
Oklahoma has 35 diverse state parks. That is a lot of state parks. So if you want to camp,
That's less than what I thought.
really?
Yeah.
They offer plenty of camping opportunities with pristine wilderness ranging from pine forest to sand dunes. The really cool thing about Oklahoma is half or part of it is like in the mountains and the other part is a desert. So you could camp, and there's actually a lot of states we've been through like that. You could camp on one side of the state and it'd be totally different than camping on the other side of the state. Or you could be like,
actually, when you really think about it in the US, there's almost every state is like that,
Yeah.
actually. Very, very much like where it could be like totally flat, like maybe no lakes or whatever, and then this side is like mountainy and foresty and lakes or whatever. Texas is kind of the same idea. Same with actually like even New Mexico is like that in some parts. When you get to the north,
yeah, you're right. It is
Colorado
like
is sort of the same thing. So yeah, it's kind
yeah.
of,
So that's I don't know. I think that's pretty cool that you can be in one state and have so much different variety and range. So there's my fact.
Well, make sure you guys follow and share. If you comment, it helps us too. Like I said, it helps the algorithm. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share us on social media if you don't mind. Give us a hand there. And yeah, we appreciate everybody watching.
I am free and on the road.
I'm TK's Garage 405.
And we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Sorry.